Okay, we're up and running. Thank you. So the first source, whenever we are discussing Chanukah, is the place where Chanukah appears in the Talmud, in the Gemara. And that is in Masechet Shabbos, in the tractate of the Sabbath, where we discuss the different types of material that can be used for the wicks of the Shabbat candles and the oil or the fuel for the Shabbat candles. And along the way there, the Gemara also discusses, well, how about for Chanukah? And that is the segue that we have for the Talmud to speak about Chanukah. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, the Gemara in Shabbos on 21b, Chaf Aleph Amud Bet, Ciner, Rabbi, we have it both in Hebrew and English, so all should follow according to how they find it most comfortable. Mitzvat Chanukah, Ner Ish U Beito. The mitzvah of Chanukah is one ner per a man and his household. So there is one candle per household. That is the basic mitzvah. That is how one would fulfill the mitzvah. If a person has no means to buy, so then this is the bare minimum, to have one candle the first night, one candle the second night, one candle the third night, a sum total of 8 candles for the 8 nights of Chanukah. The Hamahadrin, the Gemara goes further and says, those who want to enhance the mitzvah, ner l'kol echad v'echad. There is a ner, again a single ner, for each and every member of the household. A household of 5 has 5 candles the first night. A household of 5 has 5 candles the second night, 5 candles the third night, etc. V'hamahadrin min hamahadrin, those who are the enhancers of the enhancers, those who want to enhance it even further. Now, actually, even further is a bit misleading. There are 2 ways of understanding this. Is number 3, is this coming to say this is a better improvement than number 2 was? Is this substituting the improvement number 2? Or is this adding on to number 2? Is it adding on to that enhancement? I'll explain in a moment. Those who enhance of the enhancers of the enhancers. Beit Shammai says Yom Rishon Malik Shmon Mekav Elech Pochet V'Holech. Beit Shammai says start at 8, work your way down 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Beis Hillel Omrim Yom Rishon Malik Echad Mekav Elech Mosif V'Holech. Beis Hillel says that we follow 1 on the first night, building up to 8 on the last night. Now, I mentioned before, there are 2 ways of learning the Gemara. The way that the Svardim, the way that the Tosfot, and that is the way that the Svardim follow their custom, they learn that number 3 is saying, don't enhance it with number 2 that everyone lights. No. The better enhancement is to light 1 the first night, 2 the second night, 3 the third night. So according to the way the Tosfot learns the Gemara there, and again that is the practice of the Svardim, there's only 1 Chanukah that is lit in each house. When you're growing up, right? 1 Chanukah in the house. 1 Chanukah in the house. And number 3 is saying a better enhancement than each one lighting is that the one person who lights 1 through 8. So the way Tosfot learns it is number 3 is substituting for number 2. It's a better enhancement than number 2. According to the way the Rambam learns it, interestingly enough, that's the minhag of the Ashkenazic communities, is number 3 is adding on to number 2. We agree with your enhancement. Everyone should light. And we'll add on to that. When everyone lights, everyone should light 1 the first night, 2 the second night, 3 the third night. And therefore, in Ashkenazic homes, we will have multiple Chanukiot being lit. Okay. Rashi, which is source number 2, says Ner Ish Ubeito, which was the original, that's the base level fulfillment of the mitzvah. Ner Echad B'chol Laila. 1 candle, 1 kindling for each night. The Ish, the Chol B'nei Beito. And a person and the entire household, Sagi luhu b'ner echad. A man and b'nei beito and his household suffice with one candle. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה b'dvaro.
Amen.
However, there are different ways of understanding this, which is source number 3, the Sfat Emet's commentary on the Gemara. V'yesh la'ayin, we need to look into this. Iha mitzvah, is the mitzvah, Aleph, A, ner echad babayit? Is it one ner for the house? Kama mezuzah. For example, let's look at mezuzah. Let's say we have multiple families living in a home. Right? So does each put a mezuzah up on the front door? How many mezuzahs will there be on the front door? One mezuzah. Right? It is for the house, so to speak. Ukmo ner Shabbat. Or like ner Shabbat. Now, there is no woman who's not going to want to light her own Shabbos candles, but if there are multiple families living in the house, there needs to be Shabbat candles that are lit over there by the Shabbos area, right? So is that how it works by Ner Chanukah also? To call shehidlik l'shem Shabbat, af shehidlik mishiyeh dai. As long as candles were lit for Shabbat, right? Then no matter who lights it, it suffices. Therefore, multiple families in one home need one Chanukah, one lighting of Chanukah, like they need one mezuzah. O Neima. Alternatively, we can say, right, Beth, B, da mitzvah al kol adam. The mitzvah is on each person. Ella, but the Baal HaBayit motzi kol b'nei beito. The head of the household fulfills the mitzvah for all members of his household. And therefore, if you've got multiple families, each family needs to light. Okay? So is it on the house or is it on the household? Is that one ner meant to be one ner per bayit, per house, like a mezuzah? Or is it one ner per family? And the reason there's only one ner is the Baal HaBayit, the head of the household. So everyone in that family fulfills their mitzvah through his lighting. Multiple families, multiple heads of household, multiple lightings. That is the Sfat Emet's question, query that he has. How is this supposed to be viewed?
People, Southern California Edison, they would like to light up the house more. I would think they go in the house.
Okay, Dov, thank you. Number 4 is the Chacham Tzvi's response. Teshuvah. In response, Svirali, it seems to me, to be Chanukah, when it comes to Chanukah, it's not an obligation that goes literally onto the head of the person. But rather one from all the Baal HaBayit, from all those who might be living in there, all the families that are there, Madlik bepetach hechatzer. He will light at the entranceway of the courtyard. V'shuv ein shum chiyuv al shum echad mikol balei habayit. And there's no further obligation on any other family that might be living there. Avavi shelo shamu habracha. Either they did not hear the blessing being made. V'lo ro'u hadlaka. They did not witness. They were not a part of the lighting. V'adifa minei amar Rabbi Zera. And Rabbi Zera said even more than this. Kevan de Nesivna, he said once I got married, Amina, I said Tulo Tzerichna, I no longer need to light. Daha kamadlik yalai go beta. He was away from the house. Listen to what I'm saying. Listen first, then talk. He was away from his house, and therefore he said there was no need for me to be lighting. Why? because my wife, who's in the house when I'm away, is lighting for me. If I'm traveling, if a man is traveling, and his wife or someone else is lighting in the house, there's no need for that person to be lighting. Amtu lahachi, therefore, sagi bekatan, he says, interestingly enough, if you have a young, a child, shehigia lechinuch, right, not a toddler, they've reached the age of education, hamalik b'petach hachatzer, and he lights by the entrance to the courtyard, that will suffice. Ava b'kriyat ha-Megillah, whereas the reading of the Megillah, hamutal al kol echad ve'echad likrot, there it's not an obligation for the house. There's an obligation on each person to read or hear the Megillah. Ein katan, afshi giya lechinuch motziyat harabim. A katan, even though he might have reached the age of chinuch, he can't be motzi others. The chilik zemit kabel al adat. This seems very, very clear and understandable. Nearly, that's what he writes. So the Chasam Sofer says, the Chacham Tzvi, I'm sorry, that it seems it's an obligation on the house, so to speak. So therefore, if you have multiple families living in the house, they need to light one Chanukah in the proper place. He speaks about doing it by the courtyard. It's meant to be in a place actually outside where it's visible, right? We customarily do it by a window, right? But actually, my house, the window there's a fence in front, you can't see it from the street, so we light outside our door. That's what we light. We light outside of our door. The Pnei Yoshua adds on, the Shani Hacha She'ein Hacha Ikar Mitzvah Ela B'Samuch L'Reshut HaRabim. The main mitzvah, the essential way to fulfill the mitzvah, is adjacent to the public thoroughfare, the Reshut HaRabim, the public domain. Shu Mishum Pirsume Nisa. That is how we publicize the miracle. Mishum Kachi Tilu Chavad Mitzvah Zu Ki'ilu Hi Chavad Habayit. Listen how he words it. It's as if it's an obligation on the house. Sounds very much like the mezuzah, right? Which is an obligation on the house. Therefore, this is very much house related. This is very much related to the Jewish house, the Jewish home. That's why actually it's interesting that when you put it by the doorway, we say it should be to the left of the doorway. Why is that? You've got the mezuzah on the right, you've got the Chanukah, you've got the Chanukah candles or lights on the left, and that is the Jewish home, right, during this time.
Is he saying that if you go away for Hanukkah, that somebody should come to your house and light menorah?
That's an interesting
What he's saying is,
Like mezuzah?
no. If I'm away, right? But if I'm traveling and there's sometimes you'll go, right? You'll go out, there'll be a wedding, Hanukkah night, right? So people will want to light the Chanukah at the wedding. That the mitzvah is by the house, right? If you're in an airport, right? There's no mitzvah besides you get arrested, right? There's no mitzvah, right, to light the Chanukah by the airport, right? The mitzvah is by the house. Now, if someone in your house is lighting when you're away, then you're covered. That's what Rabbi Zera had said. If no one's home, so then if I go to someone else's house and I'll be staying there, then either I should light there or I should chip in, give a little bit of money towards the cost, and that way I've purchased a chelek, a portion of that mitzvah, and therefore it's considered also my mitzvah.
You could do like the Roman on the Beis Hamikdash and one menorahs in there for the house. So we can say one.
Well, not really, Dov. Right? That's why we don't even refer to it as a menorah. It's a Chanukah, right? So yeah. Okay. The Medrash teaches us. This is source number 6. Amdu v'gazru. they stood up, so to speak. They declared, they decreed, the Greeks did. Kol ben Yisroel she'osulo briach o masker lepitcho yidaker b'cherev. Any ben Yisrael, any Israelite who has any sort of means of closing his house, a bolt or closing to his door, yidaker b'cherev, will be stabbed by the sword. The kochach lama, why? Kidei shulo yeh Yisrael kavod velo rishut. We should that the Israelites should not have any dignity and not any place that's considered their own, right? Any privacy. Should call bayit she'ein lo delet, ein lo kavod velo tzniut. A house without a door has no honor, has no modesty, has no space of their own. V'chol harotz likanes nichnas vein bayom uvein balayla. Anyone who wants to enter can enter there day, night. It's just a free-for-all. It's a thoroughfare. Right? And this, again, is touching upon this idea of the sanctity of the Jewish home, of the home having its sanctity, and the mitzvah being on the home, and the gzeirot, the decrees, being against that sanctity of the Jewish home. Amdu v'gazru, they went further. Kol mi she'isha olecha l'tvila yidaker b'cherev. Any man whose wife goes and utilizes the mikvah will also, the mikvah, which is the ritual purification bath that a married woman utilizes on a monthly basis. Anyone who utilizes that, yidaker b'cherev. Again, there is the kedusha, the holiness of the Jewish home, and they were trying to destroy that. Kaven Sharo, number 8, Yevanim she'ein Yisrael margishim zerotayim. They saw that this was not affecting us, meaning it was not deflating us, it was not destroying us. Under the Gozo laying Gzeir Marav Achur, they made an even more bitter decree. That every woman about to get married has to first have a visitation with the governor of that place. Right? This already brought about a result that we were so disheartened that people stopped getting married. And the girls would get older, right? Would turn into young adults and then older adults, right? While still betulat, while still virgins. This was the wrath that they tried to of these decrees, which were meant to destroy this home, this Jewish home, and we get a sense then that the mitzvah was in fact on the bayit, on the home. In other words, we attach a tremendous amount of importance and holiness to the home. To the home. The mezuzah, it's interesting. When by the time of the exodus from Egypt, so the blood went onto the doorposts. The doorposts meant whatever goes on outside is going on outside. But we have our sanctum. We have our space. We create our environment. We create our spirituality within the home. And that's what the mezuzah also is. That there is, as we cross that threshold from inside to outside, even within the house itself, we have this constant cognizance of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, of the Shema that's there, and we understand that we need to keep Vayam Achanecha Kadosh. We need to keep our sanctum that needs to be kept kadosh, holy.
These tours are acting like the mystery over here, the same.
And I guess Greeks never apologized for this since then. So we can collectively keep on them all those years. Okay.
We haven't gotten too many apologies. Yeah.
Apologetics.
Though actually, do you see the article I sent you? I sent you an email this morning, David. You didn't see it?
I'm sorry.
Oh, so it's interesting. I saw that it was in the Jerusalem Post. There was an article that the Pope, I don't know if it was the Pope himself, but the Catholic Church came out with some sort of a proclamation yesterday that there should not be any attempts to missionize Jews. That Judaism, that the Catholic Church accepts, which they had done a number of years ago, but this is making it even clearer, accepts a Judaism as a I don't know, parallel path. I forget the exact words. I sent you the article there. I was curious to know if that had made its rounds at all and how that was being received.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Years ago, Pat Robertson made the same thing.
Yeah.
Came to the same conclusion.
Yeah. But Pat Robertson has a lot of authority, but this is coming out of the Vatican.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was interesting. And and also my brother-in-law sent me a speaker from Kufi. That's the Christians United for Israel. I once went to a dinner that they ran in Washington, and that was pretty wild, and yeah. But for the most part, we haven't waited around for too many apologies from the Greeks or others.
Or the geek.
At least, let's keep it in mind. All of them,
Yeah.
globally.
Yeah. We shall see.
The Mormons
Okay,
also learn-
let's go further in that Gemara Shabbos, which is again a repeat of number 9 is the Gemara Shabbos again. But let's focus on the two different approaches of Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. So we learned again the mitzvah. The basic mitzvah is 1 candle per household. Mahadrin say per each person, and then Mahadrin and Mahadrin. According to Beit Shammai, we said you start with 8 and work your way down to 1. According to Beit Hillel, you start with 1 and work your way up to 8. Okay, source number 10, the Gemara gives different explanations for each of these opinions, the opinions of Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Amar Ula says, Pligiba, this is disputed by Trei Amorai, by 2 sages, B'ma'arava, in the west, which is in the land of Israel. Right? If you're in Bavel, then Israel is off to the west. Rabbi Yossi bar Avin, Rabbi Yossi bar Zvida. Both names were Rabbi Yossi. One was Rabbi Yossi, the son of Avin. The other was Rabbi Yossi, the son of Zvida. Charamar one said, Talmid Beit Shammai kineged yamim hanichnasin. Beit Shammai looks at it. How many miracle days do we have left? On the first night, right? We're just starting Chanukah. There are 8 miracle days left. Second night, there are 7 miracle days left. By the 8th day, or the night of the 8th day, there's 1 miracle day left. Ubeis Hillel, Tana Beis Hillel, Keneged Yamim HaYotzin. According to Beis Hillel, rather corresponds to how many days has this already, or at least was it starting to its miraculous burn. Right? So it's the first day of the miraculous burn, the second day of the miraculous burn, until we get to the 8th day of its miraculous burning. That's how one of them explains it, explains the debate here. The Chadama, the other one says, Tama de Beit Shammai, Keneged Parei Hechag. Interesting. We find that on Sukkot, we bring a total of 70 bulls as sacrifices. 13 on the first day, working our way down of 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, until the 7th day we've done 7. Right? That adds up to, well, let's go 13 and 7 is 20, 12 and 8 is 20, 11 and 9 is 20, and 10. That's how we get to the 70th. Okay? That corresponds, you know I like the math, Steve. Right? That corresponds to the 70 nations. Right? Now the amount of bullocks that we bring is diminishing. Therefore, so too, Beis Shammai says in a similar vein, the candles that we light each night diminish. Time of the Beis Hillel, the reasoning of Beis Hillel is the Malin B'Kodesh. Ve'ein moridin. We must ascend in holiness. We add on. We ascend. We don't diminish. Therefore, it's 1 to 8, not 8 to 1. Amar Rav Chana, Rav Yochanan, Shnei Zukim Beit Sidon. There were 2 elders in Sidon. Echad Asakei Beis Shammai, Echad Asakei Beis Hillel. Right? One followed Beis Shammai, one followed Beis Hillel. And the reasons they gave were the second set of reasons, either the diminishing of the bulls or the increase of Kedusha. Source number 11. Let's try to understand this.
Here's a question.
Yes.
We know that when Mashiach comes, they will be actually doing more as a Beit Shammai, or there. Suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about Chanukah? How that will be?
We're going to touch on that a little bit, right? Alex is mentioning that the halacha follows the opinion of Beis Hillel, but we say that Beit Shammai, who often have a stricter, and we'll see also in a different approach than the time of the Messiah, of Mashiach, that is the approach we'll follow. So he's asking us what will happen with Chanukah, right? And let's wait a little bit, we'll see actually. So the Chasam Sofer explains as follows. Nearly, source 11. Lebeit Shammai asu ikar mimapalat hasonim. Beit Shammai focused on the fall of the hateful enemies that we discussed above. Al kein pochet v'holech k'shivim parei hachag shehem neged shivim umot. And therefore it corresponds to these 70 ox offerings of Sukkot, right, which also are diminishing. That those who are coming against us, that should diminish. Ulbeit Hillel kavu neged aliyatan shel Yisroel. Whereas Hillel was focused not on the fall of the hateful enemies, but on the elevation, the ascent of Israel. Al kain ma'alim bakodesh. Certainly this was a time then when the power that the Yevanim had against us was diminishing, and our ability to function as Jews and to function in the Beit HaMikdash, in the temple properly, was on the ascent. So Beit Shammai is focusing on the fall of the hateful enemies, and Beis Hillel is focusing on the ascent of Yisroel. Yes?
And there is a parallel, because coupled to Sukkot Shmini Atzeret, which is the 8th day and 8 days of Hanukkah, and that's just for us supposedly, not any of the other nations.
Okay, nice idea. Nice idea. Okay, source number 12. B'kocho shel Hashemen lidlok pi shmona. The koach, which means the power, the potential that oil had to burn on day 1 was pi shmona. It had within it somehow the potential for 8 days of burning. The poel, however, that was the potential. However, bepoel hayal lehefach. But in terms of what it actually was doing, it's the opposite. Meaning, actually, the first day they saw, this has the ability to burn 1 day. On the second day they saw, this actualized and it burned a second day. And then a third day. So by the 8th day, it had actualized 8 days of burning. However, the potential, in retrospect, we understand the potential on day 1 was 8. The potential on day 2 was an additional 7, until the potential on day 8 was only 1. Uvekach nechleku Beit Shammai u Beit Hillel. And this was the argument of Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Beit Shammai l'shitatam machshivim et haderech kefi mashuhu b'koach. Beit Shammai is looking at the potential, dealing with the potential, and therefore 8, 7, 6 down to 1. Ubeit Hillel l'shitatam. Beit Hillel's approach is marichem et otomi nekudat hotzaato lepoel. What was actualized, not what is the potential, what potential has been realized, has come about. And Rabbi Berelwein, right, a very contemporary rabbi of ours, right, he has a beautiful piece which we'll go through. Chanukah, in its halachic discussions and various applications, represent the necessary two components of Jewish life. These are reality, the very bottom of the third page, number 13. These are reality and potential. Beit Shammai deals with potential. Beit Hillel deals with reality and actuality. Thus, on the first night of Chanukah, there is potential for 8 days of holiday to come, and therefore Beit Shammai suggests all 8 lights be kindled. Beit Hillel deal with the actuality, states only one day of the holiday has arrived, only one light to be kindled. And these two different views will naturally govern the amount of lights to be kindled as we go through the successive nights of Chanukah. The halachic process always busies itself with deciding in a practical manner which of two conflicting opinions is to become the practice of normative Judaism. Right? There is this concept of Elu v'Elu, Divrei Elokim. I was going to mention that. There's a concept that both are the words of the living God. Both have validity. The question is, which one will be adopted as the normative process? The halach has taught us that we follow the opinion of Beit Hillel when it comes to the Chanukah. Yet the opinion of Beit Shammai is not to be ignored or discarded. The Talmud teaches us that both opinions are the words of living God, not just Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, but all the opinions in the Talmud are Divrei Elokim Chayim, the words of the living God. We humans can only in practice follow one of the opinions, and halacha has to institute one, and instituted Beit Hillel as the accepted practice of Jewish tradition and society. But we are bidden not to forget the underlying value that the opinion of Beit Shammai represents, right? Which is the potential, right?
I thought that it's good that the halacha didn't come up with both opinions. And we have one menorah for Beit Hillel, one for Beit Shammai.
Or have to be ambidextrous.
Here you can A, here you can one and go.
A society that only lives in the present and deals exclusively with the reality that it faces eventually loses spirit, drive, and enthusiasm. Actuality rarely creates innovation and creativity. These qualities stem from intuition, seeing potential, dreams of as of yet unrealized ideals. In education, many times the failure of the school or teacher and thus of the pupil as well stems from seeing the student only in his or her present actuality, ignoring the great potential that lies within the young. I forget which Rosh Yeshiva it was. I think it was in Torah B'das. Which yeshiva it was. It was a terrible snowstorm in New York, and this Brooklyn yeshiva, the Rosh Yeshiva was giving his shiur, and normally there would be close to 100 boys assembled at the shiur. And this day, because of this tremendous snowstorm, there was no subway, there were no buses, the streets were all snarled. There were 5 or 6 boys sitting in the lecture hall. And someone passed by and heard the Rosh Yeshiva giving his shiur with that same energy and vitality, and the place was electric, and there were 5 people there. So afterwards he said to the Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi, there was only 5 people there. You could have had them move closer, or could have spoken a little less dynamically, a little less loudly, less forcefully. And he said, you saw 5 or 6 boys there. I saw 5 or 6 fathers and grandfathers. I saw them. I saw their children. I saw their grandchildren. I saw all that could come from these people, and that's who I was addressing. Rabbi Ryan writes, when he was head of the yeshiva in Monsey, New York, the great sage of Yaakov Kamenetsky of blessed memory warned me about the treatment of the mischievous student. He told me he should not be summarily expelled from the school. Mischievous students many times are the ones that usually possess great potential, which in later life when activated will be of benefit to all. It's a very famous letter from the Chazon Ish of Bnei Brak, also to principals, that to be careful with the troublemakers, with the guys who have a lot of energy. Because if we can get them to our side, then they come with a lot of energy.
I went to yeshiva near Yeshiva University. There was a yeshiva there, and he drew an Israeli flag. I guess it was Yom Ha'atzmaut. He was expelled. And my brother now lives in Bnei Brak, has 6 children, and is a Haredi. And they expelled him because
Yeah.
It's very simple. They have stronger Yetzirah, which is basically working against
strong
their
Yetzirah.
potential.
And there are those that say, I believe I heard this in the name of the Belzer Rebbe, that the reason why Yitzchak wanted initially to give the blessing to Esav, because Esav was a wild man, right? You know, and you get an Esav on board, wow, right? You know, where you can go with that is incredible. Yaakov was a lot simpler, quieter, right? The effect that he would have would be a lot less pronounced than an Esav can bring to the table. Interesting. Chanukah represents the combination of these two essential values in Jewish national and personal life, Irvine writes. The military victory of the Chashmonaim over the pagan Syrian Greek idolaters was necessary and practical and realistic. It restored Jewish sovereignty over the land of Israel, and because the Jewish rule continued for more than 100 years until the arrival of Pompey and the Romans in the country. Chanukah must therefore commemorate the physical, practical, military victory. But Chanukah also represents the rededication of the temple to its holy service and purpose. Holiness and spiritual achievements are always measured not only in terms of their current achievements, but in their unlimited potential for later generations as well. There's in Torah Vidas that this year is being given in Brooklyn, I remember now. The lights of Chanukah, kindled almost 22 centuries ago, are still the spark that kindles our Chanukah lamps in our homes and society today. The miracle of that small cruse of oil that somehow burned for 8 days was the harbinger of the story of the inexplicable potential of the Jewish people to survive and still flourish in the dark night of an awful exile. Therefore, Chanukah bids us to be practical and realistic in our behavior and policies, but also guides us to see beyond the moment and to see the great potential that lies within the Jews and Jewish society, and to attempt thereupon to actualize that potential. The reality of the problems that face us should never be allowed to eclipse the talented, holy potential that lies within us. And just yesterday, as I was sitting, standing outside my door and just looking at those little lights, I was thinking to myself, those lights are still burning, right? It's not a bonfire, right? We've never been a bonfire, but we've been those steady lights that burn on year after year after year after year. Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry. Did you finish?
Yes.
Okay. I saw on Facebook, and I wish I could give the rabbi credit where the quote came from, because there was a rabbi who said this quote, and I thought it was great. He said something about the shamash and the candles, like you use the shamash to ignite the other candles, so it's the shamash that affects like the change or ignites. So you need the shamash to affect change, to light the candles. So the same way that we need to use the shamash to affect the change or to ignite. So I forgot the exact quote, but I thought it was great. I shared it on Facebook. I wish I had it right now in front of me. But the same way that we should all have, like, use in our personality or utilize, this and have in our personality this type of attribute to affect change.
To kindle others.
Yeah, exactly.
Kindle others. Very nice.
Yeah.
Very, very nice.
So I really like that.
Yeah. And that's something that we discuss often. Every person is different. Every person has different experiences, and that gives us our own unique slant on life, on situations, and that's the unique contribution that every person can make. And each one of us can affect and are affected differently by others, and we need to join the fray and make sure we bring what we have to the table, and 100%, and do our best to kindle all those around us. Very good. Yasher koach, everybody. Thank you. And welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay. You'll send my regards back to Westchester, please. Okay.
I'm sorry, I was.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Dad.
Want to kiss the mayor?
Yeah.